If God is omnipotent and sovereign, why doesn't he just kill the devil or Satan? That's what we'll talk about today. God would be the most holy, the just one, and would hate everything that is evil. It's no wonder, for example, that when things were getting out of hand here on earth in Noah's time, he sent a flood to wipe everything clean. But why does the devil still exist? God permits humanity's enemy to tempt people and spread chaos and suffering worldwide. God is the supreme power, so great it's almost impossible to describe. He could make Satan disappear with a word, a thought, or anything he wanted, but still, he allows him to exist. Well, there are some answers to that, and like everything related to religion and mythology and so on, the answer is not simple at all, but simple. It would be if you left your subscribe to the channel, and shared the video, and hyped it up too. If you want to learn more about angels and demons, take a look at the pinned comment. If you want to leave Reddit and get headphones to avoid hair loss, I'll share a link. Also, join the Discord. According to the stories, before becoming the famous devil or Satan, humanity's enemy was an angel, and incredibly not just any angel. He was the main one, God's favorite, the most beautiful and powerful of all angels, surpassing even the archangel. Miguel, God, in his eternal wisdom and power, created this being who would be called Lucifer, or, depending on the source, Samael. The type of angel Lucifer would be also varies a lot. They say he would be one of the archangels, but the most common is to place him as one of the cherubim, the angels closest to God who stayed around his throne and had an extremely terrifying and bizarre appearance. With 4 faces, one of a bull, one of an eagle, one of a human, and one of a lion, this would be the true appearance of God's most beautiful angel. Lucifer, which means the bearer of light, would be a leader. Many angels would follow and admire him since the beginning of time. Lucifer was not evil, since God creates only glory, not evil. But something grew inside Lucifer, something that would come to be called pride. Lucifer became blinded by his own light and let pride consume him. What was once Lucifer's greatest gift made him admired even in heaven. It caused the fall of God's most beautiful angel. The beauty once seen in Lucifer led to his ruin, slowly turning his light into darkness. And it made God's most beautiful angel want to be worshipped for himself, made him want to take God's own place. And in this, he says, "And you said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven above the stars of God. I will exalt my throne, and on the mount of the congregation, I will sit on the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High." He knew he couldn't achieve his goal alone, so he chose to stop serving God and became a rebel. He managed to convince a third of the angels to help him in his attempt to take the throne of heaven. And so the heavenly rebellion began. But although many see this battle as something equal, as if God and Satan were facing each other on equal terms, that was never true. God himself, according to the Bible, has no rival. Nothing compares to him. Lucifer never had a chance. God always knew this would happen. And from the moment Lucifer wanted to become equal to God, he was already defeated. The idea of a balance between light and darkness isn't biblical. While other religions or philosophies may have similar ideas, the Bible states that God has always been superior to all beings, especially Lucifer, with no equality in this conflict. The rebellious angels opposing God are like ants, challenging an elephant. I really wrote this part with fire. God was so certain that he would win that he doesn't even take part in this battle. Instead, the one who faces Lucifer and his gang of crazies is the Archangel Michael, who would take over the leadership of the angels after his brother's fall. This battle is described in Revelation. Michael and his angels fought the dragon and his angels in heaven, but the dragon's side no longer prevailed. They lost their place in heaven, and the great dragon, the ancient serpent called the devil, and Satan, who deceived the world, was cast down. He was cast down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And there was a loud voice in heaven saying, "Now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brothers has been cast down, who accused them before our God day and night. They overcame by the Lamb's blood and their testimony, not loving their lives even to death." After the fall, we don't know exactly what happened in this story, but John Milton's Paradise Lost greatly shaped our current idea of the angel's fall. Lucifer became Satan, believing it was better to rule in hell than serve in paradise, and chose to create a kingdom there. Imitating the heavenly hierarchy, he sought revenge on God by attacking his greatest creation, humanity. By the way, I have a video about Paradise Lost here on the channel, which I'll leave in the card and in the description for you, okay? But why did God allow this instead of just erasing Satan? Why let him tempt humanity? Let's consider some theories. A very easy answer to give in this case would be that the story of the so-called fall of the angels never existed, and the name Lucifer itself is never mentioned in the Bible. The so-called war of angels against the dragon, not necessarily Lucifer, happens only at the end times, which is why it's in Revelation. Fallen angels exist only in Christianity. Related religions like Judaism and Islam don't share this belief. For them, angels never had free will, so it's impossible for any of them to rebel against God. For Judaism, Satan would just be an angel in charge of testing humanity, while for Islam, the one who tempts humanity is Shaitan, who is not an angel, but a jinn. I discuss this further in my video on the 3 Satans, linked in the card and description. Anyway, since this story about the fall of the angels exists in Christianity, what helps us understand this so-called tolerance of God towards the devil? It would be the story from Islam, which tells us how the so-called jinn ended up falling from Eden, or ended up falling from the heavens. It happened long ago when everyone, animals and angels, lived together in the heavens. But then one time, Allah ended up creating from celestial fire a new being called Iblis, a jinn, and soon after, he created Adam. He asked everyone to bow to his new creation, but Iblis refused. When Allah asked why, Iblis said he shouldn't bow because the new creature was made from clay and he was made from fire. He was superior then, and Allah said Iblis would be punished for disobedience. But Iblis requested a deal and to be judged at the end of times. And he would spend all that time until then testing humanity. Allah agreed with him, but there was a condition. He could only tempt those who were distant from Allah. The faithful followers could never be touched. Iblis became Shaitan, humanity's adversary, testing those who strayed from Allah. In the end times, he too would be judged and condemned. If we take into consideration that Islam and Christianity are sister religions and have the same origin, with Abraham as that origin, this story of Shaitan could be taken into account. To answer why God doesn't kill the devil, Revelation says Satan will be judged after 1,000 years in prison and then thrown into the lake of fire. In other words, Satan, just like Shaitan, has a set date to be punished. So maybe, just maybe, until that date arrives. He would also keep testing humanity, but of course, there would be limits to these tests, testing and tempting only those who are farther from God. Until his judgment day. There's another explanation. Moving to another sister religion, Judaism, there is also no fall of the angels. Satan would be exactly that angel who observes humanity and tests it. He even appears in the Bible in the story of Job, being the one who asked God's permission to test Job. And just as Allah did with Iblis, Yahweh does with Shaitan, even giving him permission to test Job, but with many limits. When the sons of God presented themselves before the Lord, Satan also came. The Lord asked Satan, "Where do you come from?" And Satan replied, and he said, "From roaming the earth and walking through it." And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you observed my servant Job? For there is no one like him on earth, a man of integrity and uprightness, who fears God and turns away from evil." Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not put a hedge around him? You have blessed his work, household, and possessions. His livestock has grown in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and you will see if he does not curse you to your face. What about his case?" Lucifer and Satan would never have fallen either, remaining in heaven and always in the role of testing humanity. God would not kill him because he is only fulfilling his task. Another idea that was actually shared with me by a subscriber of the channel, whose name I won't mention exactly, out of fear that he might not want that. It would be that during the rebellion, Lucifer told God that he would be much better at ruling the world than God himself. God allowed Lucifer to rule briefly to show he could never be a better ruler. but only for a set time. Then, after proving to be a worse ruler than God, he would be thrown into the lake of fire. This idea is also based on the book of Revelation, where it says that Satan would be imprisoned for 1,000 years and then released, and then he would rule over the earth. After the 1,000 years end, Satan will be freed from his prison and will deceive the nations across the four corners of the earth. And Magog, as numerous as the sand of the sea, gathered us for battle. They spread across the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city. Fire came from God and devoured them. The devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and brimstone. Where are the beast and false prophet? And day after day and night after night they will be tormented forever and ever. Now there is another vision which I also find very interesting. When we ask these questions like, why doesn't God kill the devil? We're asking these questions as if God thinks like a human, but he's not human. He's far beyond that. The Christian God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and everywhere, not bound by human meaning or the physical world. We can't fully understand God or his actions, but he always solves things in the best way. God is perfect. Questioning God's plan or timing means questioning his judgment, character, and nature. The path of the Christian God would be perfect. He does not answer to human laws. God's path is perfect. The word of the Lord is proven. It shields all who trust him. Who is God but the Lord? Who is the rock but our God? God gives me strength and perfects my path. To us, keeping Satan alive makes no sense. But God would have everything under absolute control, knowing that everything will end in the best possible way. It has nothing to do with the subject of the video itself. Comparing gods to human behavior and attributing human minds to them occurs not just in Christianity, but in other religions and mythologies too. For example, when those so-called forced sexual acts happen, let's say in Greek mythology, with Zeus and his insatiable search for pleasure, and even Hera staying with him, even though she's always being betrayed. For us, this doesn't make any sense at all. Zeus's actions would be completely wrong. All of this might seem absurd to us, but that's because we're applying our human laws to the gods. But they don't follow that. They're beyond men. They would be questionable. Everything would be perfect for them, unless you still choose to apply human reasoning to God. And none of the explanations I gave you here make sense, since you could say that he would have made men based on himself. There's a very good phrase to help you try to understand why God doesn't allow the devil to die, or rather why he allows the devil to exist and hasn't killed him yet. Would you yourself have the courage to kill your own son, erasing him from existence? If you've watched the video up to this point, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it as well. And if possible, hype it up too.